It's live. Okay.
Okay, so yesterday, just to review, recap where we were holding, is let me think. Did we get to Yud Ches base, or we got to Yud Zayin base? I'm sorry, I was jumping ahead. Today's daf is daf Yud Ches. So what we got to was is I just want to do a quick recap. This whole all of our difficulties with this Tuma and Tahira Sugya started on daf Tezai Nomad Aleph when the Gemara quoted a brisa that had a three-way machlokes about if mashkin can accept tuma and if it can transmit tuma. And we had a three-way machlokes in the brisa, and since then, all the confusing tuma and tire gemaras were just really about sorting out and explaining the three shitas. So let's talk about the three shitas. The first shita was Reb Meir. Reb Meir said a halacha that if you have some water, let's say I have water in a cup, wine in a cup, any mashka, and a sheretz passed by, and we're not sure, did the sheretz touch this mashka or didn't it touch the mashka? It's a suffix. Dr. Meir, that suffix is a suffix dairaisa. Since it's a suffix dairaisa, the mashka is tame. Now, what if that tame mashka then spritzed somewhere, and we're not sure if it touched my ribsteak or not? We're not sure if it touched the Michael. So the halacha is, we say misafik, it's tar, it's a suffix derabbanan. So from there you can deduce that mashkin becoming tame is midaraisa. Mashkin transmitting tuma midaraisa it cannot. A mashka cannot transmit tuma midaraisa, but a mashka midarabanan can transmit tuma. Therefore, if it's a suffix, it will not transmit tuma. Another nafkamina of the fact that it's only transmitting tuma midarabanan is in the Beis Hamikdash, where we don't want to have a lot of tuma. The Rabbanan tend not to make gezeris about tuma in the Beis Hamikdash, so it would be easy to argue that in the Beis Hamikdash, mashkin would not transmit tuma if it's only the Rabbanan. So that's the first shita, the shita of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda comes along, and we already learned that. We learned at the end of yesterday, but we're going to review today that Rabbi Yehuda ended up backing out from his position. But Rabbi Yehuda in our brisa said, Tomei Lakoil. Mashkin can become Tomei Midaraisa, and Mashkin can be Metama, other things Midaraisa, both Mashkin as well as Kalim. But notice, Mashkin cannot be Metama Mashkin. It's either Michael or Kalim. And the third shita was Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon, who said that Michael for sure is Tomei Midaraisa. It could also be Metama Daraisa, but it cannot be Metama Kalim Midaraisa. It could only be Metama a Michael Midaraisa. So those are the three shitas. And then the Gemara introduced another shita, which was Rabbi Yosy and Eliezer Stroida, who made a comment that there is no tuma on any mashkin in the Beis Hamikdash. So that would indicate, without a doubt, that he holds that any tuma of mashkin at all would have to be derabanan. Therefore, he can argue that it doesn't apply to the Beis Hamikdash, because generally speaking, we can assume that if something's tamei midaraisa, there would be no exception in the Beis Hamikdash. But if something is only tamei midarabanan, there would be an exception in the Beis Hamikdash that we don't make the gzeris there. So the Gemara, Rav Papa yesterday offered one exception. Rav Papa said it's possible that something is tamei deraisa. Water, mashkin, it's possible that that's tamei midaraisa. Yet in the Beis Hamikdash, if you had at least a revis of that water and it was mechuber lakarke, it was on the floor, it would have midaraisa the status of a mikveh. And since in the Beis Hamikdash we don't make gezeris, that water that's on the floor mechuber lakarka would not be tamei, and because it acts as a mikveh. But of course, with Rabbanan, we know that the minimum size mikveh is 40 saw. But something that's really tamei midaraisa, not being tamei in the Beis Hamikdash, is if it's at least a revius, and it's on the ground, if it's at least a revius, and it's on the ground, then if it's water, so it has to be water, at least a revius, and on the ground, then it wouldn't be matama. The Gemara then proceeded to analyze Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, who said Tamei Lakoil, his position, that it was Tamei Lakoil, because we proved from Rabbi Yehuda said that something that became Tamei from a mashke doesn't have the regular Hilchas Tumah. It has a weird Hilchas Tumah. If Tumah touches the outside of a keli, only the outside of the keli is going to be Tamei, yet the inside of the keli will not be Tamei. That's a weird manifestation of Tumah. So it must be the Rabbanon, because like we said yesterday, whenever the Rabbanon made a Gzeira and made something Tamei, they always gave it weird characteristics, so that people should realize that this isn't really Tamei Midaraisa, it's only Tamei Midarabanan. Why do they want to have that trademark? Why do the Rabbanon want it to be obvious that this Tumah is only Midarabanan and not Midaraisa? Simple, because Truma, Tameya, Kochim that's Tamei have to be burned. So if you have Kochim that's Tamei Midaraisa, there's a mitzvah to burn it. But if you have kachim that's not tamei midaraisa, it's usher to destroy it. So if something's tamei midarabanan and you destroy it, you've really done an isser because you've destroyed something that midaraisa was not tamei. So therefore, they gave the characteristics of this tumah, not typical characteristics, so that everyone would know this is a rabbanan dekatuma, and you don't burn truma, you don't burn kachim if they have this rabbanan dekatuma. So the Gemara successfully proved that the Yehuda at least backed out of his position that a mashkin could be matama kalim. Now the question is, what does Rabbi Yehuda hold about a mashkin being matama amaychel? Could a mashkin be matama amaychel or not? In other words, would he agree with her mayor that a mashkin cannot be matama anything, or would he agree with Reb Shimon, who holds that at least a mashkin can be matama amaychel? And that's what the Gemara was probing at this point. Iboyelhu, it's like 6 lines from the bottom. Mikalim hu da haderbe, avo ba'oichlin krab Yosy Reb Shimon svirle. Does he still hold by Oichlin that the mashka could be Matama Oichlin? A Dilma Lagamri Hadebe, or did Rabbi Yehuda totally abandon his position, Kerb Meir, and now he holds that even though a mashkin could become Tomei Midaraisa, a mashkin cannot be Matama something else Midaraisa. So today is going to be a beautiful day because we have all the sheet Tomei Midaraisa, not Tomei Midaraisa, but one question we never had is why? Wouldn't it be geschmack when you learn a Sugya you'll start off with the psukim, and then you'll says about it, and then you say it, and then you get psak halacha. Here we're starting with the psak halacha, and we don't even know where it comes from. If mashkin is tamei midaraisa, if mashkin can make other things tamei midaraisa, where do we know it from? Today we're going to unlock that secret, and we're going to understand the mechanics behind everything. So let's see what the Gemara says. We're going to go right back to the psukim that'll tell us the makar for everything. So let's mashka that's tamei, could it be matama maichel like Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon, or can it not be matama maichel like Rabbi Meir? We're going to bring you a raya from an interesting case. We know that if anybody touches the water and ash mixture that's there for the paraduma, the person becomes tamei. He becomes tamei, and he could be matama other things. So what happens if it's a para sheshasasa mechatus? A para drank water from the para aduma. Now, let's think about it. While a para is alive, a live animal will never be tamei. But you shechted it, and there's water in its stomach. There's water from the mechatus in the stomach of the para, and now you shechted the para. So, do you say that the mechatus now touched this meat? Because once you shecht the animal, it's just meat. Do you say that the mechatus touched this meat, and now this meat is tamei, tumah chamura, to be able to be matama other things or not? So the Tanakama says bisara tamei, its meat is tamei. The Gemara is going to be medayik soon that bisara tamei means that it's a light tumah, like a sheni, because if it was a serious tumah, then it wouldn't just say bisara tamei, it would say mitama adam v'kelim. Since it only says bisara tamei, it means it's a light tumah, it's a tumas michael, and it's only tamei itself, but it's not matama anything else. Rabbi Yehuda says, once the mechatos gets into the stomach of the animal, it is no longer mechatos, and therefore it would not be able to create a tumah chamura. But frek the Gemara, visolka daitach mikelim hu dehaderbe avo ba'oichlin krab Yosy Reb Shimon svirle. If you're going to argue that Rabbi Yehuda holds that mashkin as a Michael could be like a drink, a Michael, a mashkin could be matama a Michael, a my batlu b'me'el legamri. Why do you say that there's no tuma here at all? Nehidi tuma chamura loy matamu. I understand why it's no longer considered mechatos, and therefore it won't be matama the meat with an ava tuma, with a rishon tuma. I agree with that. But tuma kahala mia nitmehu. Let's think about this. At some point in time, while the water entered the cow, it transitioned from being mechatos to standard water, to standard mashka. At that instant of the transformation, the standard water was touching the mechatos. So the standard water should at least become tame, like mashkin that we know can become tame. Now that the cow has regular mashkin in its stomach, that regular mashkin should be able to be matama the meat. If you hold that a mashka could be matama maichel, then why can't this mashka, this water now, that's merely standard water, it's not mechatas anymore, but why will it not make the meat of the cow tame? So that's the Gemara's question. Because if you're going to say that Rabbi Yehuda just says that mashkin cannot be matama kelim, but it could be matama oichlin, like the meat of this animal, why do you say that there's no tuma here at all? I understand why it's no longer considered like it touched poraduma water, but tumakala nitmu. But the water should at least become tame, like a regular water that's a mashke, and then it should be able to turn around and be matama the Michael, be matama the meat of the animal. Elamai, it must be, Rabbi Yehuda holds that in fact mashkin cannot be matama anything at all, and he holds like Rabbi Meir. Zok Gemara, you don't have a raya. My botlu b'me'el nami. What did Rabbi Yehuda mean when he said the water is bottle in the stomach of the animal? It means botla mituma chamura avol mituma kala mitamu. He just means that it's not tummy the tuma chamura of a paraduma water, but it is still tummy. The problem is the way we just learned the brisa. We said that that's what the Tanna Kama holds. We said the Tanna Kama holds the basar is tummy tumakala. So Zok Gemara, if you want to say that Rabbi Yehuda holds that the basar of the animal is tummy with a tumakala mechalal, that would infer the Tanna Kama suffer tumachamura nami metamu. The Tanna Kama is arguing on Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanna Kama said tummy, and Rabbi Yehuda said not tummy. So if when Rabbi Yehuda said not tummy, it meant not tummy tumachamura, but tumakala. So when the Chum said tummy, that must have meant tumachamura. But he doesn't say that because habasura tummy katani. It said habasara tummy katani. The wording that the Tanna Kama used to describe the status of this meat was basara tummy, and he didn't say that it's matama adam v'kelim like Rashi explains. Rashi explains. Let's see where it is. Habasara tummy kamar. The loy timi elas habasar. Only the basar is tummy. V'loitana adam v'kelim hanoigin behen tameim. It doesn't say that, which indicates, in fact, that it's only tummy a tumakala. So the Tanna Kama holds a tummy a tumakala. Rabbi Yehuda must hold it's not tummy at all. So there is no machlokes here. The entire brisa is actually Rabbi Yehuda talking, and this is how you should read the brisa. A part that drank the water of the paraduma. Bisara tummy, its meat will be tummy. What type of tumah? Tumakala. They're merely a tumah such as tumas oichlin. Aval tumah chamura, but it won't be a rishon tumah like the tumah that touches a mechatos. Loy. Why is that? The water loses its status of mechatos inside the animal. So therefore, you don't have a raya anymore that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of tumakala. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda still holds that the mashkin could be matama oichlin. Maybe, maybe not. Rabbi Ashi has another way to answer Rabbi Yehuda. Really, in this case, Rabbi Yehuda holds there's no tuma at all. But you can't bring a raya just because in this case where the animal swallowed the water, it doesn't become tummy. You can't bring me a raya overall that mashkin cannot be matame maichel. You know why? Because here it's different. The reason why this water won't even be matame the cow as a tumas mashkin is because water inside the stomach of a cow becomes spoiled, it becomes ichi. And that's not even considered a mashka and therefore the cow doesn't become tummy. But you don't have a raya about Rabbi Yehuda's position. If in normal case, if mashka is tummy, can it be metame a Michael? We don't know the answer. So right now we have Rabbi Meir who holds mashka could become tummy midaraisa, but cannot be metame others midaraisa. Rabbi Yehuda, we don't know. Rabbi Yehuda came out very strong that it could in the brisa, but we see Rabbi Yehuda backed out of that, and Rabbi Yehuda holds for sure mashka cannot be mitama keli, and we're not even sure if Rabbi Yehuda holds it could be mitama Michael. And then Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon was the third sheet in the brisa, and they're the only ones that are left standing right now. At least we're going to get rid of them too, but they're left standing, saying that with clarity that if a mashkin becomes tummy, which it could become tummy midaraisa, it will then turn around midaraisa and make something else tummy. So we need answers. We need to know where does it say in the Torah that a mashkin could become tummy, and we need to know, according to those people who learn that the mashkin could be matama Michael, where does it say that in the Torah? And that's what we're going to get the answer to today. And that's really going to bring the whole sugya full circle, and it's actually going to make sense. So let's see what it says. Let's now drill down and analyze Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon, because we've analyzed Rabbi Meir, we've analyzed Rabbi Yosy ben Yezer Istreda with the four shitas, Rav and Shmuel and Rav and Levi. We've analyzed Rabbi Yehuda. So now the only thing left to do before we button up the sugya is to analyze Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon oimrim le'oichlin tmein. If mashke touches oichlin, it'll make the oichlin tmein. But le'kelim tarim, if it touches kelim, it'll be tar. Notice, nobody even suggests if it touches another mashkin. So right off the bat, we're going to see in this sugya that if mashkin touches mashkin, it for sure will not make it tummy. The only question is if mashkin touches an oichel, will it be tummy? So tummy wine will not be able to be metame tahar wine, but tummy wine might be able to be metame tahar cheese. So you'd have wine and cheese. However, on the flip side, a meichel, which we know could become tummy, we know for a fact that a meichel that become tummy will not be able to be metame another meichel. If you have cheese that's tummy, it will not be metame other cheese. A meichel that's tummy could only be metame a mashke. So a mashke can be metame a meichel, and a meichel could be metame a mashke. But a meichel cannot be metame a meichel, and a mashke cannot be metame a mashke. So we would say opposites attract. And we're going to see the reason for all that. So all of these difficult to understand rules actually are all grounded in the Torah itself, the Torah Akdosha.
Yes, sorry, I don't know if you're talking, but how is a mashke matama another mashke? How do you touch one mashke to another?
You pour some in.
So how come in the case of the press, when you had the truma falling into the tumah, how would that become tummy? You can't be matama one to another.
Some of the wine that's truma would fall in, would flow into the barrel of chulin.
So it wasn't the wine in the barrel that was matamet, it was the barrel itself that was matamet?
No, the wine at the bottom, the wine in the cistern below, the chulin wine was already tummy.
But you can't you can't make another liquid tummy.
So you're asking me over there, in that case, what was the whole problem if the truma is going in, it won't be tummy?
Right.
Oh, that's an excellent question. You hear David's question? It's an excellent question. If it's across the board that wine cannot make wine tummy because it's a mashkin to a mashkin, and nobody seems to hold that a mashkin can make a mashkin tummy, how will that work? That's an excellent question, and I don't have the answer, but I'm going to throw out some thoughts. In Chaggai's test that we learned yesterday, the order of operation was lechem, nizid, yayin, shemen, Michael, mashke, right? So there we should have the same question as well. So I'm not sure. It's possible that that's midirabanan. It's possible that midirabanan mashke will be matama mashke. We're discussing deraises. That's one possibility. The other possibility is no. That's the only possibility that I could think of, because if the truma will not become tummy, then the kohen should be able to drink it. So it must be that it's becoming tummy. But that's a good question. I'm going to have to look into that, because it's an obvious question. You clearly see examples of mashke being tummy mashke. I'm going to have to do some homework on it. Thank you for bringing that up, and I'm going to try to get a real answer. I just thought maybe you could say it's Derabanan. That's an excellent question.
Could be the Keli also, the Keli that's holding the original Thomas.
But the problem is the mashke doesn't make a Keli tummy.
Right, unless it was tummy from before.
Unless you hold it does, right. So we do know, I'm going to now, as I'm talking to you, I'm becoming more confident in what I'm saying. Because if you go back to the first page of Rabbi Chanina's Kana Kaihanim, when all this excitement started, it actually discusses the fact that a Michael cannot be Matama a Michael. Meat cannot be Matama meat. And the Gemara was discussing a very important halacha. It says over here, this is, I'm on you, Dalar Amaral, very important. This is actually the main makar of where you know that one Michael cannot be Matama another Michael. Tomehu. So basically, a sheret touched meat, the meat is tamei, and we make a dik. Hu tamei ve'ein oisa kayoyte ve'tamei. It cannot make meat, cannot make more Michael tamei, but it could make a mashkin tamei. So this is actually the foundation. And I'm happy that we're going back here because this is going to be relevant for what we're about to learn. So the foundation of everything, of why a Michael cannot be matama another Michael, is this pasuk of Tamehu, and we're Medaik, Hu Tamei, Vein Oisa Kiyoisa Betamei. And right there in the Gemara had some options. The Gemara thought maybe this only applies to Kachim and not to Chulin, or maybe it only applies to Kachim and Truma and not to Chulin. And then the Gemara says, and even if it applies to Kachim as well, the Gemara ended up saying, Nehi De'ein Oichel Matama Oichel Midiraisa, Midirabon and Miyu Matama. So we do see that like things, it's only Midiraisa that they're not matama one another. But midirabanan they surely will, and it's possible that this halacha only applies to chulin, that like things don't make themselves tamei. It might not apply to truma. So that would for sure answer your question. There are shittas who holds that by truma and by kachim, you do say midaraisa even, that Michael's matama Michael, but even if you hold like the shita who holds Michael's not matama Michael at all, midirabanan it will be. So thank you very much for bringing that up, because it's think as much as I think I have clarity, there's always room for more clarity. So thank you for that. Very, very important point. Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. Now that we looked up that Gemara, so I want to just reinforce the where the whole thing starts is that pasuk that talks about a sheretz making a Michael Tamei. We're going to find that nowhere in the Torah does it ever say that if a sheretz touched a mashke, it will make a mashke Tamei. And we're going to have to find a makar for that. But it does say beferish in the Torah directly addresses a sheretz touching a Michael, like a piece of meat. And that's the pasuk we just learned, Tamehu. If a sheretz touches a piece of meat, the meat is Tamei. It's black and white that food gets Tamei midaraisa if it touches a sheretz. And according to the Rosh we learned, Tamehu, the Michael itself is Tamei, that piece of meat is Tamei. But if it touched another piece of meat, it would not make a Tamei midaraisa. The only thing it could make tamei midaraisa is if it touched a mashke. So if this meat that was tamei touched wine, it would make the wine tamei. So now let's get started. We're looking for the makar of Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon. So Zok Amar Rabbi Bar Bachana Amar Shlokish, Rabbi Yosy B'Shitas Rabbi Kiva Rabbi Amra. Rabbi Yosef is relying the way he knows that mashke could be matama something else, and of course the something else is going to be a Michael. He knows it because he's following Rabbi Akiva's interpretation of the pasuk, and we're soon going to see that Rabbi Yosy disagrees with Rabbi Akiva's interpretation of the pasuk, and in fact, Rabbi Yosy doesn't even hold on his own that a mashke could be matama something else. He's just pointing out that my Rabbi Akiva would hold that a mashke could be matama something else, but I personally hold like Rabbi Meir that a mashke would not be able to be matama something else. So now that we've went through all the different shittas, we've really debunked to a certain extent this whole idea that midaraisa, a mashkin could be matama another mashkin. Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon backed out of it. Rabbi Yehuda might have also backed out of it. So it seems like we don't really have a solid makar that a mashka could be matama something else, other than from Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva we surely don't hold like. So let's stop for a minute now. We know that midaraisa, we all know that a Av makes a Rishon makes a Sheni. If it's chulin, the sheni can't go any further. But truma, we learned, could become a shlishi, and kachim could even become a ravi. But the lowest level of tumah that chulin could have is a sheni. Rabbi Kiva argues on that, and that makes Rabbi Kiva different than everybody else. And where did he get it from? So Gemara as follows: B'shitas Rabbi Kiva Rabbi Amra to Dorish Yitma Yitame. Titnan, we learned boy b'yoyim on that very special day. The very special day was the day that Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah became the Rosh Yeshiva and Rabbi Gamliel was removed. Rabbi Gamliel had a very strict admission policy, and he only let people in who were toichei kabayri, who were top of the top, and that was very, very restrictive. The day Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah took over, he had an open border policy. Whoever wants to come and learn, he let them in. So the Bismedish overflowed, and there was a surge of Torah that came out that day. And one of the things that happened that day was Rabbi Kiva said some drashas. Dorish Rabbi Kiva. On that day, Rabbi Kiva said a drasha. It says v'chol kli cheres asher yipol mehem. So let's look at the pasuk inside, because we have the advantage of having the Torah. It says v'chol kli cheres asher yipol mehem al toichai kol asher b'toichai yitma v'oisei shishbaru. So let's talk about what happened. You have a kli cheres, and the sheretz was in the aver of the kli cheres. The sheretz is an avatuma. It's going to make the kli cheres into a rishon latuma. Now, if into that keli fell a piece of meat, yipel mehel al toichai, if something fell into it, yitma, that piece of meat will now become tamei. V'oisei shishbaru, and you're going to break the keli. So we're talking about meat that got tamei from a sheretz. Then the pasuk goes on, the very next pasuk. This is a very important pasuk. Any food that's in that keli that became tamei from the keli. So let's think about it. How did that food become tamei? The sheretz was an av. It made the keli into a rishon. So if the keli is now transmitting tumah to this piece of meat or this michael that's in the keli, it's going to make it into a sheni. So we're talking about a piece of meat that's a sheni. So it's any food, asher yavel of mayim, if it was hukshur l'kabel tumah, yitma, it will become tamei, it will become a sheni l'tumah. So Rabbi Kiva points out the following question: why doesn't it say asher yavel of mayim tamei? Any meat that's going to be, or any food that's going to be in this keli, will become tamei. It'll become a sheni. He doesn't say that. It says yitma. So Rabbi Kiva darshans yitma to mean yitamei. It will make something else tamei. So it will become a sheni, but yitamei, it can also then go and make something else tamei, which would indicate that a sheni could make a shlishi by chulin. So let's see the pasuk inside. The Torah didn't use the word tamei, ela yitma. So we darshan yitamei acherim. Since it used an unusual word, yitma itself means it will be tamei. It will not be mitam other things. But since it used the word yitma, we darshan yitamei that it can be mitam other things. Limed al kikar sheni, so aisha shlishi b'chulun. Clearly, this was a sheni, and if it could be mitamei something else, it must be that by chulun, because that's what this pasuk is discussing, you can have a shlishi l'tumah. So that's Rabbi Kiva's drasha. We don't hold Rabbi Kiva's drasha. Of course, we hold you don't have a shlishi b'chulun. But let's think about it. As a byproduct, part and parcel of Rabbi Kiva's drasha is that this Michael that became tamei will now be mitama something else, right? So now let's go down to the bottom of the pasuk, which was talking about mashke. At the end it says v'chol mashke asher yishasa v'chol kli yitame as well, yitma as well. It says the same thing regarding a mashke that was in that kli cheres, which means if there was a liquid, let's say there was wine in that kli cheres, it would become a sheni. But it says yitma, sheni, and it will now be able to be metama something else. So based on Rabbi Kiva, of the way he learned the pasuk, we learn that both a Michael could be metama something else, and a mashke could be metama something else. And when we go to the end of the pasuk that's talking about mashke, it says v'chol mashke asher yishasa v'chol kli yitame yitma. So we dashen yitame letame tumas oichlin.
Yosy, sorry. Can you just clarify something for me? In that keli, the sheretz fell into the keli and it touched the food as well, or it fell into the keli, made the tummy keli, went out, and then you put food in there? I'm not sure here what's going on.
I'm very happy you brought that up because that's a very important point that I wasn't sure if I should mention. It's important to note that when you have a sheretz that's in the keli, let's say you have a sheretz in the keli and you have a piece of meat in the keli at the same time. We don't say that the piece of meat, since it's in the same avir kli cheres as the piece of meat, it will get a direct Wi-Fi tumah directly from the sheretz. We don't say that. We say that the sheretz is matama the keli, and then the keli is matama the meichel that's in it. So if the sheretz actually touched the meat, that's a different story. That's not what this pasuk is discussing. If the sheretz actually touched the meat, it would make the meat into a rishon, indeed. But in this case, the sheretz didn't touch the meat. It's hovering in the air. The meat might be in the keli, but the sheretz will not directly be matama the meat. So the sheretz is the av, makes the keli into a rishon, and then the rishon keli makes the meat into a sheni. So thank you for pointing that out. That's a very important point. So basically, in order for you to say that the mashke could be matama something else, by definition, the way Rabbi Kiva learns, you're saying that a sheni could make a shlishi. We know, we're going to prove soon, that Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon do not hold that a sheni could make a shlishi by chulin. So therefore, what the Gemara is saying here is the entire idea that Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon said that a mashke could be matama something else with the raisa is based on Rabbi Kiva's drasha of yitame. But we don't hold it at drasha yitame, because if you hold it at drasha yitame, then you're also going to have to agree that there's a shlishi batuma by chulin, which nobody holds of other than Rabbi Kiva. So therefore, Rabbi Yosy, even when he said that a mashke could be matama something else, he didn't even mean that he holds like that. He just meant that his Rabbi Kiva holds like that. And that really takes us to the end of this sugya, because now we understand what everybody holds. We know what Rabbi Meir holds in the brisa, we know what Rabbi Yehuda holds in the brisa, and now we know what Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon hold in the brisa, that even though they said that mashke is matama oichel, it's not really matama oichel. It only means, according to the way Rabbi Kiva learned, that he darshan yitame, and if you darshan that way, you also have to say by definition that a chulin can make a shlishi, which we don't hold of. So now we're going to get into the building blocks, because we're getting into the psukim already. So we already had our first pasuk that we saw earlier by Tamehu. If meat touches a sheretz, if a sheretz touches meat, the meat becomes tameh, and it could only be mitama mashke. It cannot be mitama meichel, because it says hu tameh, but it will not be mitama kiyotzeba. That's what we learned on Daf Yudalad. We went back this morning. Then we have two psukim here. The first half of the pasuk is talking about a meichel that becomes tameh if it's in a klicheres, that's a rishon, and we're talking about a mashke that becomes tameh if it's in the klicheres of a rishon. According to Rabbi Kiva, we learn yitma yitame. It could also make something else tameh. So the meichel could make something else tameh, and the mashke can make something else tameh. That's what we have so far. Now, I just want to bring up a point. Rabbi Kiva makes a drasha. It says yitma. It didn't say tameh. So because of that, we know it's matama something else. It passes the tameh on. But if that's true, why didn't it say yitame? Let it just say yitame. It didn't say yitame, it said yitma. So the Gemara is going to tell us soon that we're going to play the coin on both sides. Since it used yitma, it didn't say tameh, it teaches us that it can make something else tameh. But since it says yitma and it didn't say yitame, it also teaches us that it cannot make a like thing tameh. So therefore, a meichel that's tameh could make something else tameh, but it cannot make another meichel tameh. It could only make another a mashke tameh. And here at the bottom where it says yitma, it can make something else tameh. It doesn't mean that it can make another mashke tameh. It can only make another meichel tameh. So now we understand why there's this opposite attracts type of arrangement. Because from the contradictory mashmoyos of the word yitma, it seems to say it can be matama something else, but it seems also to say it can't be matama something else. So we learn it could be matama something else if it's not the same thing as it is. So a mashke can be matama a meichel, and a meichel can be matama a mashke, but not the other way around. So now we're starting to dredge up the details and the makoros for all of these interesting halachas that we've been learning. So basically, where we're holding now is Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon, using Rabbi Kiva's approach to the psukim, learned that yitame could be matama something, could be matama oichlin. Now I already released information that the Gemara is going to offer later, but we're going to be going through the Shakal of Ataya now. So at the Omer l'tamei tumas oichlin, Maybe it could be Matama Tumas Mashkin. So I already told you from the Dik of the Yatame, it's not. But the Gemara is going to go through these steps slowly. Maybe at the end of the pasuk where it says, where the pasuk says the Chomashka Asher Yishasa Chokli Yatame, maybe it could mean that it's Matama Mashkin as well, not just Oichlin. Amrit, the Gemara says Loi Kachaya. That doesn't work that way. It's no such thing. You cannot say that the mashka will be able to be Matama Mashka. Fact more, my Loi Kachaya, because you said so. I need to know a reason for it. Why is it that you're going to argue that a mashka cannot be Matama Mashka? Amar Papa, Dr. Papa, because Loi Metzinu Tuma Sha'oise Kayotzeba. You never find ever that Tuma could make the same thing Tame. And Rashi says that it's referring back to the Gemara that we quoted earlier on Yud Dalet Amud Aleph, that David pointed us to, that since it says Tamehu, when a sheretz touches meat, it teaches us that meat could be Matama a mashke, but meat, a meichel, cannot be Matama a meichel. So since you never find such a thing, it's not logical to say that mashke is different and that mashke could be Matama mashke. Ravina Amar, Migufei Dekra Nami Loi Matas Amrit. Yitma yilatame tumas mashkin. We don't need external rayas. If you analyze this pasuk itself, I'll be able to prove to you mineu bay that one mashka cannot be matama another mashka. The solka daitach yitame the seifa. If you're going to argue that the yitame at the end of the pasuk that's referring to a mashka is latame tumas mashkin, that it's telling you that it can be matama mashkin, then my question will be yitame the reisha. Nami latama tumas mashkin. We know that the yitama of the reisha, we know for sure means that it's not matama a meichel kamayu, rather it's matama mashkin. So if the first yitama means it's matama mashkin, and the second yitama means it's yitama mashkin, why did it say yitama twice? Ne'arvinu v'nichtavinu, the pasuk should have wrapped both cases, the case of the food becoming tamei and the case of the mashkin becoming tamei, it could have wrapped it all into one case, and it could have said, Mikol oichel asher yachel, asher yavel of mayim, skip the word yitma, and then it could have said continued v'chol mashke asher yishasa b'chol kli, and then it could have said yitma, referring back to both cases, because in both cases it could be metama amashke. Trey yitma lomali. Why did the pasuk repeat the word yitma twice? One referring to the meichel and one referring to the mashke. Ella, it must be that yitma the reisha letama tumas mashkin. The Yitma of the Reisha is telling us something different than the Yitma of the Seifa is. The Yitma of the Reisha, which is referring to of Oichel that's Tameh, is saying Yitma can be Matama a Mashka. And Yitma the Seifa, we're talking about the Mashka becoming Tameh, Letama Tumas Oichlin, that's telling you that Matama Tumas Oichlin. So you needed two different Yitmas, because one was talking about being Matama Mashkin, and one is talking about being Matama Oichlin. Frag the Gemara, who said that that's the best way to apply this extra Yitma? Let's say they're both referring to mashkin. So you're going to ask me, why did the Torah say the yitma, the word yitma, a second time? I'll tell you why. To tell you another kiddush. The aim of the tames hakelim. Maybe it teaches us that a mashka will in fact be able to be a tamakalim, which was what we thought Rabbi Yehuda said originally. Zok Gemara, you'd never be able to say that a mashka can be matamakelim, and I'll tell you why. V'lav kal v'chomer. It's a pashta kal v'chomer. Uma kli, the keli itself, that's a rishon l'tumah, that became tamei from the sheretz. Shemitame mashke. If mashke falls into that keli, that mashke will become a sheni, like we're saying. Nevertheless, ein mitame kli. If a keli falls into this keli, so the keli is a rishon, the second keli that falls into it won't become tamei at all, because a keli cannot become tamei with anything less than a rishon. So if the keli, which is the makar of the tumah, the keli is what's making the mashkin tamei. If the keli itself can't make another keli tamei, mashkin aboyin machmas keli, the mashkin are pasuk, that's only getting its tumah because it's in that same keli. Einoidin shaloi tamus a kelim. How for sure it shouldn't be able to be matama kelim. If its source can't be matama kelim, surely it cannot be matama kelim. Push the raya. Fact Gemara, I'm not talking about mashke that became tummy from a keli. Of course, if it became tummy from a keli, it can't be stronger than the keli itself. But I'm talking about a different mashke. I agree with you that if the mashke was a sheni, because it only became tummy from the kli, that mashke that's a sheni surely can't go and be matama keli. because its source can't be matama keli. But I'm talking about ava mashke avoid machmas sheretz. I'm talking about what if you have a mashke that touched directly a sheretz, and the mashke itself was a rishon. Maybe that mashke should be able to be matama keli. Hachanami, hachanami de matamu. Maybe if mashkin became tamei from a sheretz and it's a rishon tuma, maybe it should be able to be matama keli. So to Gemara, you got a big problem because mashkin aboy machmasher shmiksivi. Is there any pasuk in the Torah anywhere that ever talks about a mashke being able to become tamei if it touches a sheretz? We have a pasuk that discusses a meichel that touches a sheretz that it becomes tamei, but there's no pasuk anywhere in the entire Torah that discusses a sheretz that touched directly a mashke. So how do you even know that a mashke becomes tamei at all if it touches a sheretz? We have a pasuk that says that if the mashke was in a keli that a sheretz touched, that the mashke would be tamei. But how do you even know that a mashke that got touched by a sheretz become tamei? Zok to Gemara, I'll tell you how you know it. You know it from a kal v'chomer, from mashke that became tamei in the keli. It must be from the kal v'chomer. What do we know midaraisa? What is there a pasuk about the ferish? That if the mashke fell into a klicheres that was a rishon, the mashke will become a sheni. That's what we know. That's what it says in the Torah. So we're going to have to build from there. Uma mashke boy machmas kli. Madach this mashke that becomes tamei if it fell into a keli and it becomes a sheni l'tumah. Mitamin, it becomes tamei, and it could be mitamin something else. Mashke boy machmas sheretz. If you have this mashke that cut out the middleman, it didn't get tamei from the keli. It got tamei directly from the sheretz. Loy kol shekain. Surely it will become tamei. So how do we know that if a sheretz touches a mashke, that the mashke is tamei? We know it from a kal v'chomer, from mashke that only touched the keli that a sheretz touched, that a sheretz was in. Based on that, we have a rule. You could never learn more from a kal v'chomer than the source itself. If the source of the tumah of mashkin is a mashke that got tamei because it was in a keli, and we know that mashke cannot be matama keli, so therefore the mashke that became directly tamei from the sheretz, which is only a derivative through a kal v'chomer of the mashke that got tamei in the keli, that will not either be able to be matama keli. So that's how we know. That's how we know that mashke cannot be matama keli. So even according to Rabbi Kiva, who darshans yitma yitame, that a mashke could be matama something else, and the mashke sheni could make something else shlishi, it cannot be a mashke. It has to be a meichel, and we know that because it says yitame twice in the pasuk, and we also know that it cannot be matama keli because of da'ilav medin liyosh kanidain. So we have all our facts now. We know that mashke could become tamei. According to Rabbi Kiva, mashke could make something else tamei, and we know that it cannot make another mashke tamei. It could make a meichel tamei, and it cannot make a keli tamei. So we got all of our information now clear and directly we have a makor directly from the Torah, directly related to a pasuk in the Torah, directly supported by the pasuk in the Torah. So now we're going to go back to understanding Rabbi Kiva, because we just mentioned Rabbi Kiva in passing is yitma yitame. So the Gemara wants to know heichi dorish mikola oichel asher yachel asher yave olav mayim yitma. How do we darshan that? So Rashi says that we're looking now to probe. We're looking now to probe in more detail what Rabbi Kiva's drush was. Yitma dereisha gabe oichel heichi dorish Rabbi Kiva. So Yitma de Reisha, that Yitma of the Reisha, which is referring to the Oichel that became Tamei, Heichi Darish. Exactly how did Rabbi Kiva darshan it? So let's go back. It tells me Kala Oichel Asher Yachel Asher Yave Olav Mayim Yitma. So you have a Michael that's in a Klicheres. The Klicheres is a Rishon. It's going to make the food inside it into a Sheni. And he darshans Yitma Yitamei, that this meat that's a Sheni will be able to be mitame something else. Letame es mashkin. This meat that's a meichel will now be able to be mitame the mashkin and make it into a shlishi. Frag the Gemara. Ata oimer letame es mashkin. Oy einoi elo letame es kli. The same question we had regarding to the mashkin before, we can ask regarding the Michael. How do we know that a Michael that became Tameh from a Kli Cheres, so this Michael is now a Sheni L'Tuma, how do we know it cannot be Matama Kli? Amrit Kal V'chomer. We can now have a Kal V'chomer from Mashke, because we've already established with clarity that a Mashke cannot be Matama Kli. Now that we've established that it's anchored, we could pivot off that anchor. Uma Mashke, Shematama Oichel. Madach Mashke, which could make an Oichel Tameh, Einoi Matama Kli, it cannot be Matama Kli, like we've just verified earlier. Oichel, she'ein Matama Oichel, an Oichel that we know cannot be Matama another Oichel. Like we said, it says Tamehu, and it can't be Matama Ki Yoitzaboy. Einoi Din, surely Shalo Yitama Kli. If a Mashke, which has more powers than Michael, because it can be Matama Michael, yet it can't be Matama Kli. Oichel, which is weaker, cannot be Matama Oichel, surely it shouldn't be able to be Matama Keli. Ha ma ani mekayim yitma. It says yitma, it could be Matama something else. What else is the Michael going to be Matama if it cannot be Matama Akeli and it can't be Matama of other Michael? It's got to be Latama Esa Mashkin. It's got to be Matama Mashkin. Why? Why is it Matama Mashkin? Because Mashkin is more susceptible to Tuma than anything else. Shin Alulan Lakabal Tuma. Because Mashke is more susceptible to be Makabal Tuma. Why is Mashkin more susceptible to Lakabal Tuma? We learned this already, and the Gemara is going to speak it out soon, because Mashkin does not need Hechsher. A Michael has to get wet before it could be Makabal Tuma. A Mashke, right out of the box, is Makabal Tuma. So, Frank the Gemara, my area, Mashkin, Mishum da Aludan Lakabal Tuma, let's think. We're trying to figure out, we have a pasuk that says that food that became Tameh in the Kli Cheres could be Matama something else. So let's use the process of elimination. It can't be referring to a Keli that it's Matama, because we have a Kal V'chomer. It can't be referring to a Michael that it's Matama, because we have the pasuk Tamehu. So what's left? Mashka. What else? So why do I need a special reason of Mishum Dalulun? My area Mashka Mishum Dalulun Lakabal Tuma. Why did you need this reason? Why we're going to say that the Tuma that we're referring to, that a Michael could be Matama, is Mashka? You don't need a reason for it. Typical A, Mishum Dalakamida Achrina. There is no other options. It's either Eichel, Mashka, or Kalim. So we've eliminated Eichel, we've eliminated Kalim, so it's got to be Mashka. Why do you need this extra reason of Mishum Dalulun? So I'll tell you why. Because V'chi Tema, we had a Kal V'chomer. What was the Kal V'chomer? What was the Kal V'chomer that we had? Why a Mashka, why a Michael cannot be Matama Kli? Because we said, Uma Mashka, Shematama Oichel, Eina Matama Kli, Oichel, She'eina Matama Oichel, Eina Din, Shalo Yitama Kli. So you might ask me a kash on that Kal V'chomer. Oichel Chomer. Don't tell me because a Mashka cannot be Matama Keli, so that therefore a Michael cannot be Matama Keli. A Michael is more Chomer than a Mashka. Maybe a Mashka cannot be Matama Kli, but maybe a Michael should be able to be Matama Kli, because Oichel is Chomer. How is an Oichel more Chomer than a Mashka? The Matama Mashkin. And the Oichel could be Matama what a Mashkin could not, because an Oichel could be Matama Mashkin, yet a Mashkin cannot be Matama Mashkin. So therefore, maybe in the Tami L'Kli. So since Oichel has a one-up on the Mashka, that it could be Matama Mashka, maybe by the same token, it should also be able to be Matama Kli. On that, the Gemara says, Hahu Chumer de Mashkanu. It's not a Chumer of a Michael that it's able to be Matama Mashka. The reason why a Michael can be Matama Mashka is not because the Michael is super Tameh, it's because the Mashkin is super Tameh. Mishum the Mashkin alun l'kabel Tumah. Mashka is much more susceptible to Tumah. That's why the Michael could be Matama the Mashka. Not because the Michael has any super type of Tumah, so therefore you can argue that it should also be Matama Keli. No, really, Michael is a weaker type of Tumah, because it can't be Matama Michael. And that it can be Matama Mashka has nothing to do with the strength. It doesn't speak to the strength of the Tumah of the Michael. It's just telling you that the Mashka has a very low resistance to Tumah. Umahi Ali Lawson. Why does Mashka have a very low resistance to Tumah? Shemekablim Tumah Shaloi Behechsher. Because water or any Mashka could be Mekabel Tumah, even though it wasn't Hochsher Lekabel Tumah. Okay, so now we covered ground a little bit, because we know a Michael cannot be Matama Michael, and we know a Michael cannot be Matama Keli. Yitma, the Ein Oisa Kayotzeba. Why does it say Yitma, not Yitame? I discussed this earlier. if it only was trying to tell you that it can be matama something else, let's say tamei. Yitma is mashma that it's not so easily matama something else. That's to tell you the ein oisaka that it cannot make another Michael tamei. But let's stop a second. We already discussed that this whole sugya, the whole base that everything started from, was the tamehu. That's talking about a sheretz that touched a piece of meat, and it says tamehu. This piece of meat is tame, but it cannot be matam another piece of meat. So I already know that one Michael cannot be matam another Michael. So why do I need the yitma in this pasuk, which talk about meat that became tame in a keli? Why do I need this yitma to tell me that it cannot be matam a Michael kayotzeba? I already know it from the tamehu that's talking about meat that became tame directly from a sheretz. In fact, Gemara, my hacha nafka, this the yitma over here in the klicheres that teaches us that a Michael cannot be matam a Michael. May hasam nafka. We already knew it from that original pasuk of Ichiyut on Mayim al Zerav and Nofamin of Losam Alav Tamehu, and we darshan hu Tameh ve'ein oisa Tama Kayotzabai. So why would I need two psukim to tell me the same halacha that one Michael cannot be matama another Michael? Zok Gemara, I'll tell you why I need two psukim. Chad b'mashkin haboin machmas sheretz. The pasuk of Tamehu is talking about mashkin or Michael because they're really the same. That became tamei directly from the sheretz. The chad and our psukim over here is b'mashkin haboin machmas kli. V'trichi, you actually need the pasuk to teach us in both cases. Say if the mashkin or Michael became directly tamei from the sheretz, and say if it only became tamei through the keli. The ashmin b'mashkin haboin machmas kli. If we would have only had our pasuk here of Yitma, that tells you that when there's a mashkin that's a sheni, or where there's a Michael that's a sheni, it can't be matama kiyotzeba. I would say mishum deloy chamiri. It's only a sheni l'tuma. Avol b'mashkin haboin machmas sheretz. But if you have mashkin that's a rishon l'tuma because it came in direct contact with a sheretz, or a Michael that's a rishon l'tuma because it came in direct contact with a sheretz, the chamiri. So it's a much more serious tuma. Ema oisa tuma kayotzeba. Maybe it could also make a Michael can make a Michael tuma, and maybe a mashka can make a mashka tuma. Kamash malon that even by the chamiri, even if it has a rishon tuma and it got tuma directly from the sheretz, it also cannot make kayotze batame. Frankly, Gemara, I still don't need both. All we needed was for the Torah to tell me that even by a tuma chamura, where the mashkin is a rishon, you touch the sheretz directly, or the Michael was a rishon, you touch the sheretz directly, even there it cannot convey tuma to one of its own. And if I knew that, the kol shekain mashkin haboin machmas kli, and then I would surely know a weaker tuma cannot convey tuma to something like it. So why do I need two psukim for? So Gemara, you know what? You're right. Really, it only needed to tell us by the tuma chamura that it cannot convey tuma to its like. So Michael cannot be matama Michael, and mashka cannot be matama mashka. But you find in the Torah sometimes that the milsa, the asher b'kal v'chomer, torach b'kos of l'kra. Sometimes, even though you could figure something out with a kal v'chomer, the pasuk was going to say it anyway. So, of course, the Gemara always tries to find the trichasa. But when we're stuck and we can't find any reasoning for it, we can always rely on the fact that the Torah sometimes will tell you something explicitly, even though we could have figured it out with a kal v'chomer. So now we really have all of our ducks lined up. We have Tamehu that tells us that a Michael cannot be matama Michael. We have Yitma that tells you a Mashka cannot be matama Mashka. We have the Yitma by food and the Yitma by Mashka to tell you that a Mashka that's a Sheni could be matama Michael and make it into a Shlishi that's Chulin, according to Rabbi Kiva. You have the Yitama by food that tells you food that's a Sheni could be matama Mashka and make it into a Shlishi. And based on Rabbi Kiva, you learn that not only will a mashka become tamei, it will also convey tameh. And we also know, as a byproduct from Rabbi Kiva, that you can have a shlishi l'tameh by chulin. Of course, Rabbi Yosy doesn't hold to that, and therefore Rabbi Yosy wouldn't even hold that a mashka could be matama something else. So this really takes us full circle. Now we're going to talk about the following. Now, I already told you that Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yosy are just saying this in Rabbi Kiva's Shita, but they don't hold like it. The Gemara didn't tell that to you yet. Now the Gemara is going to tell that to you. Amar Ravina Ravashi, the Amar Rava, Lo Rabbi Yosy Savar Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Yosy doesn't hold of the Chiddush that Rabbi Kiva said, which means he doesn't hold that you can have a shlishi by chulin. Rabbi Kiva savalok Rabbi Yosy, and Rabbi Kiva does not hold of the chiddush that Rabbi Yosy said, and we're going to talk about that chiddush momentarily. But it's intertwined. Since Rabbi Kiva holds that you have a shlishi by chulin, that halacha that he held makes him not be able to agree with a different thing that Rabbi Yosy said, because the other thing that Rabbi Yosy said will conflict with saying that by chulin you can have a shlishi l'tumah. Amar lei, so Ravina commented to Rav Ashi, how could you say that the explanation for Rabbi Yoshi's shita is Rabbi Kiva? We know that Rabbi Yosy does not agree with his Rabbi Kiva. So Rav Ashi answered, you're right. Rabbi Yosy b'shitas Rabbi Kiva Rabbi Amra v'lei loy sfir lei. In the Brisa, back on Tezayin Amar Aleph, when we quoted Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon as saying that a mashka is tamei midaraisa and can be matama something else midaraisa, that wasn't really what he held. He was just saying, according to my Rabbi Kiva, who darshans yitame, and he also says that you can have a shlishi by chulin. According to him, midaraisa, a mashka would able to be matama something else like another maichel. So that takes us to the end of the sugya. Now we're going to go and analyze. We said a comment a minute ago that Rabbi Kiva cannot hold of this chiddush that Rabbi Yosy said. So now we're going to discuss this chiddush that Rabbi Yosy said, and we're going to analyze what Rabbi Yosy said and why Rabbi Akiva would not be able to agree with it. So Amalei Rabbi Ashi l'Rav Kahana. Rabbi Ashi told Rav Kahana, B'ishtam Rabbi Yosy loy savar like Rabbi Akiva. I can understand that Rabbi Yosy does not hold like Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya. Now I know right off the bat that Rabbi Yosy cannot hold that there's such a thing as a shlishi b'tumah by chulin. I'm going to now prove. So our goal now is to prove that Rabbi Yosy cannot hold that there's a shlishi l'tumah by chulin, because this is what he said. To Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yosy, minayin l'revi b'kodesh shu pasal. Remember, we have all these halachas that we learned about tumah tahira, and we don't know where they come from. So we're repeating this rule that the minimum tumah by chulin is sheni, by truma is shlishi, and by kodesh is revi. Where do you get that from? So we're unlocking another secret. So this Gemara is such a yesodistic Gemara because all of the rules that we all take as a given that apply to Tumah Tahira, this Gemara unlocks their secret and tells you where everything comes from, which automatically makes it less confusing because there's actually a method to the madness. So how do you know that Revi B'Kodesh is puzzle? And we know what puzzle means. Puzzle means that it itself is tameh and you cannot eat it, but it cannot go and be matama something else. Vidinu, we can make a kal v'chomer. Uma mechusar kippurim. So what is mechusar kippurim? Mechusar kippurim is someone, let's say there was a mitzvah, he has to go through the whole process of being tar, and then he toivels. Once he toivels, he has reached a certain level of tahira, but the final step is to bring karbanos. So if someone already went to the mikveh, and he already waited till the end of the day, so he's not even at full yom anymore. It's already the next day, but he has not yet brought his karbanos to finalize the deal. The lach is shemuta b'truma. Such a person is allowed to eat truma. Remember, at full yom we said may not eat truma, but someone who's not at full yom anymore, he toiveled and it's already the next day. He just didn't bring his karbanos. He's actually allowed to eat truma. Nevertheless, poisol b'kodesh. A mechusar kapurim, if he touches kachim, he's not allowed to touch kachim, but if he touches kachim, he will make the kachim puzzle. So therefore, shlishi shapasal b'truma, shlishi which by truma is puzzle, einoidin shayas revi b'kodesh. Surely it should also be able to make revi b'kodesh. I think we're gonna have to stop because I believe the Rav starts saying a shir at around 10. So let's stop here. We're doing pretty well, and we'll pick up here tomorrow, and we'll sign off now. Thank you very much. I tried to make it as clear as possible, and thank you, David, very much for bringing up those issues because it gave us a whole bunch of extra clarity in how this works. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Thank you.